We're back. Hi, YouTube. It's Bobby from Madness Labs. And after a brief hiatus, we're back. We're back making videos. And we've got a couple exciting things to talk about today. One, we're making videos again. That's cool. Two, we actually are very close to a stable release of Ionic and Stencil. So I'm like just anxiously awaiting this new release of Ionic. But that being said, there's tons of stuff for us to cover because they've done so much updates since the last time that we posted a video. There's so many things, so many questions, and a lot of people have been reaching out on YouTube and kind of asking us to please put together more video content. You guys are one of the few people that are putting vanilla JavaScript applications together. So we hear you, and we've actually been working on a lot of exciting stuff over the last couple of months. We've been getting our ducks in a row. We've got our team kind of solidified and working on a couple new projects. We're going to be releasing probably 2 new apps here in the next month or two. Definitely before the end of the year. We've got 2 new native apps built on Ionic 4 coming out. And our big giant news for today is we this weekend are going to be participating in GlobalHack. So that is a hackathon. So for those of you who aren't initiated or live under a developer rock, basically it's an event where you get a bunch of nerds together and you lock them in a room and you give them a problem to solve, usually some kind of social problem or some kind of humanitarian type issue that they can kind of build an application around. And so we're going to be participating in our first ever hackathon. We're super excited. We've been really gearing up here over the last couple weeks. And we're going to be participating in this weekend. And if all goes well, we will actually be doing some live streaming from the event. So you can actually tune in on our channel here this weekend and see us at GlobalHack. We're going to ask the actual organizers to make sure that they're okay with that and that's not going to break any of their rules. But if all goes well, we're going to actually be live streaming. I don't know how much of it. I don't know if it's going to be the entire time. I don't know. We're just going to play it by ear as we do here at Madness Labs. So we will let you guys know on Twitter, and if you use the privacy stealer Facebook, we post on there too, I guess. So yeah, we'll keep you guys posted, or you can always just subscribe and hit the notification bell. Aha, yes, get notifications on your cell phone. And then you'll know when we go live and you'll be able to kind of tune in and see what's going on. And maybe you're our competition and you want to keep some peepers on us. But today what we're going to do is I'm going to cover something that was asked in one of our YouTube videos. Somebody asked if we could cover ChartJS and setting that guy up. So as a little bit of hackathon practice, as well as some needed fan service, I'm going to throw together a quick application here that utilizes ChartJS just so that we can kind of see it up and running. So without further ado, the background, it's Keanu Reeves looking at me like, wow, you're a specimen, aren't you? So yeah, let's get to it. Okay, so we're gonna start down. We're gonna start out by cloning down the Ionic PWA toolkit, which simple, easy peasy, lemon squeezy. Let's go ahead and open up our PowerShell window and let's cd into where the heck I keep my apps. Documents maybe. Apps, yes. I don't know where I store my stuff, guys. Help. Ah, that's right. It's in my D drive. There we go. We're in the right place now. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're actually going to clone down. The Ionic PWA toolkit. And so because we're going to go to the hackathon, I'm going to get used to doing things the old-fashioned way rather than using my awesome command line tool, the Ionic or the Ionic, the Madness Engine CLI. Shameless plug. Okay, so we're gonna clone down, and I need to do it specifically a different way because I have an SSH cert on my machine. So I need to git clone git at github.com / Madness Labs. No, what am I doing? What am I doing? Okay. Okay, git clone https github.com /Ionic team Ionic PWA toolkit. And we're going to clone this and call it Madness Chart. Cool. So now I'm going to clone that guy down, and that's going to make a new folder on my computer called Madness Chart with the contents of Ionic PWA toolkit. All I did was run git clone, and that's just using this URL here for the GitHub repo. If you're not familiar with that, please feel free to jump over to our most popular video on how to get set up with a Git repository with VS Code. Probably be super helpful. I'll put a link somewhere in descriptions or somewhere. So we'll get that. But for all of you who are initiated, we're going to go ahead and do code insiders. If you're not on the insiders build, you're just going to do code and then the name of the folder we want to open up. So Madness Chart. And boom, I've got VS Code open. Now I can close my PowerShell here. Cool, so now I've got my app open, and now I can see I've got the source directory. And again, it's just a clone of this repo. So now what I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and run Npm Install. And so I'm going to open the terminal with Control tilde or Command tilde if you're on Mac. And basically you're going to open up the command terminal, or you can go to view, I think view terminal. There it is. View terminal, and then you're going to run npm install, and that's going to install all of your dev dependencies. And if everything went well, you should be able to now run npm start. And ta-da, we have an application running in the browser. Okay. Blah. So now we've got our app running. Let's go ahead and let's go ahead and just open up the home page, make a quick change here. App home, okay, home.tsx. Yeah, if you haven't been on the Ionic beta for a while, or if you haven't seen kind of what they've been working on, you can see now, if you watch some of our older videos versus this one, you can see now they've got these E2E files, and basically they've integrated a new test thing, but that's for another video. So let's go ahead and stick to the task at hand here. I'm just going to change some stuff up and make sure that the live reloading is working. It is. Woohoo! All right, cool. So now let's go ahead, and because I want to make this video as short as possible, and I love to ramble, so let's jump right into ChartJS. So first off, I'm just going to Google it up, and we're going to get on the documentation, and I'm going to just skip right to GitHub because I like GitHub. Okay, so we're going to do npm install chart.js being importante. So let's go ahead and install the ChartJS, npm install. And actually, I'm going to bump up my fonts just a tad here because I know I've gotten complaints in the past. Okay, cool. So now you can see we've installed ChartJS, and now we should, in theory, be able to start using it inside of our page. But they don't really have any documentation on how to go about doing this, right? So what we're going to do here is up at the top of our home page, we're going to do an import. And at first, let's just skip past this part. And let's say from, and then let's find on here chart.js. So you can see there's chart.js. And now we can go back between these curly brackets here, and we should be able to get some auto-completing. And let's see if they have, it looks like they don't have any kind of modules inside of here. So they don't have it as modules. So when you run into one of these older packages that doesn't have built-in modules like this one, so yeah, we have a separate specific thing for component, for state, for props. Since we don't have one for this, we can use any old package with like a standard like require statement. We can use them by just doing import star from as chart.js from chart.js. And then you can see here now we get it's declared, but it's never read. So that's good. That means that it's able to find it, it's importing it, but it's never being used. So let's go ahead and use it here. And so I'll head back to the regular documentation, and we'll go into their get started. And here we can see they should have some instructions here. Let's see, installation. There we go, CDN, standalone, da da da. Integration, here we go. Blah, blah, blah. So there you go. So see, we did much like this one. It's kind of like this. So, oh, here you go. There's our ES6 instructions. So they do have a module out of it. So here we go. We can do import chart from ChartJS. And now we should be able to make a new chart just using this syntax here. And hopefully it'll also have our typings in there for us, which will be great. So cool. So now let's make a quick chart inside of the page here. So first off, in the content area, I'm going to take all this stuff out. I'm going to just do an ion card. And then inside the card, let's put a chart. And I like donut and pie charts. I make them all the time because donuts. So let's go ahead and get this guy set up. So let's set up a pie chart here. So we're going to make a component did load, and we're going to just put this guy in here. And let's say this dot pie chart. And we need to create this guy as state. So let's go ahead and add a new state parameter here. Call it pie chart, and it's going to be a chart. Cool. All right, cool. So CTX is the context or the element that we're going to apply this chart to. So let's go ahead and make down here, let's make a div with an ID equal to pie chart. So there we go. We've got our nice ID'd div tag down here. So now this context guy, we can actually pass in an HTML selector. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to do, and to do that, let's actually, let's use the new Rel technique. So, so there's a couple different ways to do element selection inside of your component. And the way that I used to show in old videos and the way that a lot of people are doing it is they would actually go about putting an element up here, and then you can say element, and then you can name the element. So we're going to say in this case, since it's app home, I usually name it home L dot, and then you do it HTML element. So this works. And what this does is it says, okay, whatever this component is, that is going to be able to be accessed, like the HTML element for this component is going to be accessible via this element. So now I can say this dot element, this dot home element dot, and then I can get all of the different stuff. So I can do like a query selector, and then underneath here I can query selector the pie chart, the ID of pie chart. And that works. That will definitely work. And let's put in some, let's actually get some data here. So let's copy this div, and just paste that there, and we'll just exclude the options for right now. Come on, prettier, do your job. Make my code prettier. Cool. Okay. Okay, so now we've got some sample data in here. We've got a selector. So in theory, this should generate a pie chart if I run my build. So I'm going to run npm start this server back up, and it should, in theory, generate a basic pie chart. And it doesn't. Oh no. Okay, so it says chart can't acquire context from given item. So it can't determine the context. Let's see what I did wrong here, because I always do something wrong. Oh, context. Okay, so context here in this case is the canvas. So we actually need, let's go in our usage instructions here. Okay, so if I was smart, I would have gone into the usage instructions first and reviewed that. But if you go to the website, chartjs.org, which I will put in the description, you can go to their usage section, and it actually shows you how to be a smart person. So let's go ahead and go in here, and let's replace this div with a canvas. And this canvas needs to have that same ID, so we're going to do pie chart. And we need the get context 2D to be the context. Well, actually, no, it says any of these formats will do. So it looks like we can do any of those, which is great, because we're just, it should mean that we don't have to change anything but just making that a canvas element. Boom. There we go. That's what we wanted. Cool. We still don't have any color in our thing because we need to put the colors in, I think. So that's not a huge deal. Should be able to, yeah, there it is. There's our different colors here. And hopefully we get some typings. No typings. No typings. They don't want us to have typings. Okay, cool. So labels, let's try background color. And I'm just going to put in, I think you can put in hex values or anything that you want. And let's head back over to our pie chart. See what format it wants it in. Labels, where's our colors? Background color. Okay, it goes in the actual data sets. So in the data set, we define the colors. There we go. Now I've got a gaudy looking graph. Ooh, look at that mustard yellow and ketchup red. Okay, so cool. So now we've got a pie chart. We've got it implemented. We got to put it inside of a card. That's pretty cool, right? But now let's go ahead and take this one step further and let's hook this up to a rel, because what's going to happen here is if you're making a component set and you want to be able to use this in multiple libraries, what you're probably going to want to do is actually enable shadow true. And what this is going to do is it's going to make shadow DOM, it's going to enable shadow DOM for this element, for this component. And so when I save this, in theory, if I know what's going to happen correctly, there we go. So in theory, now we're not getting anything. And the reason why we're not getting anything now is because remember when we make this element, it's a reference to the outer element. So the actual element that wraps this whole thing, the app homepage. The problem is that once you enable shadow DOM, it becomes like a black box. Like you can't just style it or target it with JavaScript. You have to do some extra legwork in order to get access to the element. So I can make this guy work by doing something where I do shadow root, and that will access the actual shadow root of the element. And then now what we should see is we get our chart again. So rather than doing it this way, right? This is a pretty terse way to do that. Another way we can actually do this that's a lot more concise is what we can do is like, let's get rid of this element because we don't need that at all. And what we're going to do is we're going to use the rel attribute. And this allows us to create a basic relative, like an element reference basically, so that we can reference an element inside of our component. So what we're going to do here is instead of home L, let's make a new state item, and let's call this guy, and it actually doesn't even have to be part of the state. Let's go ahead and make a new element here, and let's call this chart, make it easy, pie chart L, pie chart canvas L. Okay, so pie chart canvas L is going to be an HTML canvas element. Let's use our typings, and we're going to do, and since we don't need this query selector because we're going to get the actual reference to the actual element, and we're going to do that right here. So what we're going to do is we're going to say ref equals, and then what we're going to do is we're going to pass in. So this is going to actually give us, I think, check the docs. Hate to be right, or I hate to be wrong multiple times in a video. Not really. So what we can do is let's head down to my first component. Let's see, where is it at? Decorator, GSX. Here we go, reference. Okay, so if you go to the docs, stenciljs.com/docs, we can see down here we get this ref right here. This is what we're gonna be doing. So in this ref, it holds the actual reference to the current element that you're actually writing this attribute on. So I can say L equals HTML canvas element, and this element we're going to bind it. So we're going to do a self-binding function, and then we're going to say this dot pie chart canvas element equals element. So now what we've done here is that instantly when this renders, it's going to take the element, which is the canvas element in this case, and it's going to save it to this variable on the component here. And then what we're going to do is then pass that guy into our chart. So now we don't need this big, long, complicated selector. We can just do this dot PyChart canvas element. And so if everything goes well, we should get the exact same results. And we do. Booyah. Okay, so now we've got the exact same results. We've generated our nice little chart. So let's take this one step further, and then we'll end this video for today, as we've got lots to get ready for this hackathon. So one more thing, let's go ahead and wire this up to some kind of a form, something that will allow us to like edit this data. So to do that, let's go ahead and wire this data up to the state. So let's go ahead and up here, let's say state PyData, and just don't ever do this, but we're going to do any. Okay, cool. So our PyData is going to be any, and that means we're probably going to need to pass in red, yellow, blue. Okay, so we're probably going to need to pass in all of this data. Let's just pass in this whole lump, and we'll make it real simple-ish, right? And let's say PyData set. Okay, so now what we're going to do is let's go ahead and take this stuff, all of this. No, I lied, PyData. And what we're going to do is let's take this whole object here, and let's just say this dot PyData. Coolio, and then up here we're going to say PyData equals blah. Awesome. So now we've set some default data, and then we're going to pass that in, and then now we have something stored in our state where we can edit this guy, and then that should force it to change itself down here. So cool. So now let's go ahead and add a couple form fields here. Let's do an ion input, and we'll do type equals number. And we'll do another ion input, and we'll do type equals text. And each one of these, couple ways we can do this. In this case, let's go ahead and see, a lot of people want to do like on change on value, something like that. But I'm less of a fan of that. Like because a lot of people want to save stuff directly to their state all the time. They want to save everything to state, because it's easy, right? You just dump it in there, and then you can get it to at any point in time. And they make like real simple one-to-one. So like the easy thing to do here, the thing most people might want to do is say like, oh, okay, well this is my my data field, and then this is my label field or something. And they would then like wire that directly up to a state thing. Well, every time those state things change, it forces a render. So every time your user would type something into the field, it's going to update the state, and then the state is going to fire a render, and then that input is going to be then rendered with that new value that you just set. So that's not usually the best way to go about actually accessing this data. The better way to do it is to listen for events. And so that's what we're going to do here. We're going to instead, let's create a state item, and let's call this state item, let's keep it alphabetical here. Let's call this state item form data, and it's going to have two values, and we're going to set it equal to empty. It's going to have two optional values, and the first one's going to be the amount. It's going to be a number, and we're also going to have a label, which is going to be a string. Cool, so now we've got form data. And so now this form data is stored in the state, but now we can update, and I covered this in one of our first videos on Stencil. Now we can update amount or label, and as long as we don't reset form data, it won't force a render. So now we can save stuff in this object and not have it render until we want to. So we can now have control over that render, which is really important. Okay, cool. So now we've got the amount, we've got the label. Awesome. So now what we want to do is we want to basically take this form data, and we want to basically append that onto our data up here, right? So to do that, first off, let's create an ion button, and we'll give it a type of submit. These really don't do anything. Form, and I went back and forth with the stencil, the guys on at Ionic and stuff on this. The form handling with web components is not really fleshed out yet. Because of the fact that they're all using Shadow DOM, it stops things like your events from like the enter bar being hit inside of a field or validation. All of those things are hindered by the Shadow DOM. But Shadow DOM is so essential for web components that it's kind of like it's a must-have. So we're kind of in this weird catch-22 here. But there's a pretty elegant way that we can handle this. But it will require that you actually have to hit the button rather than being able to hit like the enter field, or use like in the past videos that I've had, I've done like a on submit on a form element. And that's kind of how we handled the forms, and we let the browser handle a lot of the validation stuff. And now in our recent projects, we've had to kind of like make our own home-rolled solution for handling form submission. But we'll do something really simplistic here. And this is kind of what is kind of suggested or recommended. Okay, so enough of me blabbing. Okay, so we've got our Ion button, type of submit, and let's just say save. And let's give it a color equal to success. So now we should have a nice green save button and a couple form fields. Come on, you can do it. Okay, cool. Well, I've got a button, but it's definitely not green. Okay, coolio. So now we've got that. Let's check our app.css. Looks like, okay, so we don't have any of the theming stuff. Let me go to beta.ionic framework, because since we've been gone, they've actually got together a set of resources. So theming, and now we can go to CSS. Here we go. There we go. Coolio. Now I can copy this, paste, boom. Now we should have some colors. Still don't have colors. What is this? Color success. All right, let me kill my build and restart it. We'll see if that does it. Okay, so cool. So, oh yeah, I might have to also do fill equals solid. Okay, it just doesn't want to color this button. It doesn't want to be colored. It says it's got it, but it doesn't. All right, whatever. All right, cool. So we've got a button. It doesn't look like a button, but it's a button. All right, fill, solid, color, success. Well, I've done what I can. Okay, so we've got a save button, and we've got two form fields. And I'm going to go ahead and give them a placeholder so we can see them. Amount, and we're going to give this guy a placeholder equal to label. And our label is also going to be the color we're going to give it, just for simplicity here. Okay, so placeholder, amount, label, color, cool. So now we've got that, right? Now what we want to do is we basically want to, whenever they click the save button down here, we want it to go about catching the data from these inputs, and we want to save them onto this PyData. And to do that, pretty simple. What we're going to do is we're going to actually go up here. We're going to add listen. And this is a decorator that's going to let us listen to events. So as events kind of trickle up the DOM here and hit the top of our component, we can kind of interact with them. And so I'm going to listen for an event that these form fields are emitting, the Ion inputs. And we're going to say @listen Ion change on input change. Okay, cool. So now we've got this Ion change, and what we can do is let's go ahead and say, let's give these guys a name, and this one's going to be named amount, and this one's going to be named label. And the reason why I'm doing that is going to become clear here momentarily. So what we're going to do, so as like a really, really easy way to update like a lump of data that we want to submit off to the database. So this is super helpful. We've gotten into such cool stuff in this video. I can't wait to start getting back to these because I have so much to share with you guys. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to say this dot form data, and then we're going to say event dot target dot name equals event dot detail dot value. Okay, so what does that do, right? So to demystify this a little bit, I'm going to console log my event, and what we're going to see. Okay, what we're going to see is when I update my amount down here, we get an event that gets emitted every time I change the value. And this is a custom event that's emitted by Ion Input. And if you want to read more about that, head on over to beta.ionicframework.com, head into their docs, and they've got under their under their API reference, they've got all this stuff documented. So if you go under, for instance, input here, you can see all these different events that they emit. So ion change, ion input. So that's when in this case, we're looking for when the value has changed. And then what we're going to do is in that event, in that actual event, they carry with it the target. And so in this case, the target is the target element that the event is being emitted from. So that's the input here. So what I did is I grabbed the target name, so event target name, so amount or label, and then I'm going to set the form data item to event detail value, which if you look here, event detail value is 13. It's the number that we typed in the field. So it's going to say, hey, this form data, in this case, amount is going to be equal to the event detail value. So that's a very simple way. Like, look at that in 4 lines there. You've got something that's basically taking and doing kind of form binding. So like it's automatically taking the data that you're typing into your inputs and it's saving it to form data. And now what we can do is when we change, we save this form data. And then when we're done, right, we needed to have it saved. So we can say on click down here on our button, and we're going to say this dot save. Cool. So we're going to say this dot save, and now we need a save method. So let's do save. And in here is where we're going to actually go about taking the data that we have in our form data. We're going to add that data into our PyData, and then we're going to probably have to refresh the actual chart itself. So that way it actually renders these changes to the data that we made, because that's not like built in out of the box. So, okay, and then that's where we'll kind of wrap up for this one. So here we go. So save, what we're first going to do is, again, we want to get the amount that we type in, and then we want to get the label that we type in, and we want to add those to our PyData here. So first off, I'm going to say, okay, so first off, let's check. Let's say if there is no form data amount or no this dot form data dot label. Let's just do a standard alert and then return false. And we're going to say alert, you must enter in both an amount and a label. So we're just going to do real simple form validation here. We're just going to do an alert if these 2 items don't exist. So cool. So that should be that. So if I click save now, it's going to say, hey, you must have both of them. And if I type in all of the fields, give it a second. No. Okay, if no form, oh, it might be that this data didn't get, oh, you must enter. When in doubt, guys, console log it out. Let's console log our form data. It is part of the state, so we're good there. Okay, so now let's try it again. Refresh our page here, and say 12 is our amount, ASDF. Undefined ASDF. Okay, so it looks like the target name is not defined. So let's go ahead and go back up here and let's console log our event. See if we can get that name value, because that's what I'm doing on other projects. But who knows? Things change. Okay, so we're going to change our amount, and then let's dig through this a little bit, and I will make this a little bit bigger. Okay, so we're going to dig through this a little bit. Let's find the name of this element. So let's do target. Let's see target. Node name app home. Okay, so I definitely don't see the name. So let's see. Is there source? Okay, cool. It looks like it's giving us back. Okay, so it's not giving us, when we click save, it's not giving us, or sorry, when we change the input, it's not giving us back the actual, it's not giving us back the actual, the input itself as a target. It looks like it's giving us back the entire app homepage, which is not what we want. We want the actual input that it's being called from. So let me take a look at their docs again here. And input. So all of that looks good. Wow, such an elegant way. I'm doing this in every other project. Always when I go to make videos, right? Okay, so form data, or the event target name is not correct. So how do we get that is the question. Let's see, what's the path here? And input. Where's it at? It's got to be in here somewhere. Okay, cool. So I can get it here. Okay, I can get it. It looks like it's under path 0. So I guess that's where the event started. So we're going to tweak this a little bit. So we're under regular path. Okay. So what we want to do is we're going to say event path 0. And that's name. The name is all the way here at the bottom because why not? Cool, so name. Okay, so in theory, this should work now. And just to test to make sure, let's go ahead and console log these guys out. So in theory, now when we update our values, we should see 13, amount, 12, there we go. Label ASDF, and now when we click our save button, cool, we don't get the error anymore. But if I delete one of these guys and click save, cool. Okay, so that's that. That's a nice little change to be aware of. So in this case, what I did, instead of doing event.target, because it looks like target gave us the overall app homepage, instead of using that target, instead what I did was I used the event path, and this path has kind of the kind of trail, the dance move there, of how the event trickles up the DOM. So it's actually the path that this event took up the DOM. So in this case, I just got ground 0 and got the name of that element. Cool. And so I think the reason why is we wrap all of our Ionic components inside of our own wrappers. And so we're able to actually catch that with event target, it turns out. Which makes it handy, but this is how you do it if you're just using regular Ionic inputs with no special sauce. But play around with that event, the actual event values here, because again, there's a lot of good stuff in there. As you saw here, you can kind of dig through there and usually can find what you're looking for. But there you go, still same thing. We've got 4 lines, and that's got our form data hooked up. Cool. So now we got our validation. So now what happens if they're successful, right? They add in an amount, they add in a label. Let's go ahead and have it add the data onto our pie chart here. This video is already getting long. Okay, so let's go ahead and do this dot pie data dot data sets pie data dot data sets 0, and that should give us this guy, right? And actually, let's just set this equal right off the bat, and that'll make our inferred typings way better. So now we got, there we go, data sets 0, and then we're going to do dot. Okay, so now this is where we want to add our data, right? We want to say dot data dot push, and that's going to push an item onto the array. And we're going to say this dot form data dot amount, and then we're going to say this dot pie data, same thing. Pie data dot data sets 0 dot let's see, in this case we want we want background color push, and we're going to push this form data dot label. And we also want to push that same label down here onto labels. So we'll say this dot pydata dot labels dot push, and we will push this dot form data dot label. Cool. So now in theory, that should be, I like that, in theory. Okay, so that should be adding our form data here. So if I add green and 12 and click save, it's doing it, but it's not going to show us that it's doing it. So how do we get it to show us that it's updated? Really simple. Let's head back over to the documentation here. And then what we can do is let's look at the general, and it's somewhere in here, events, hover, let's see, not that, modes, new, charts, let's see, updating charts. Here we go, updating charts. So luckily, it's as simple as doing the element that we have saved to our state dot update, and it will go ahead and update the chart. So simple enough. We just need to right here say this dot pychart dot update, and if all goes well, we can now, whoop, there's our green data. Cool. So let's refresh. Let's try that again. So I'm going to shrink this guy down a tiny bit. Why is it allowed to be bigger than my screen? Bullcrap. Okay, so let's refresh. There we go. There we go. Okay, so we've got this awesome pie chart, and so let's go ahead and down here type in the amount 14 and the label green. And when I click this, boom, we get an animated in nice little big piece of pie. So let's now make another one 20, and let's make this one purple. Purple bull. Boom, you get purple. And we also probably want to clear our form data. So let's just say this dot form data equals an empty array or empty object. And so now that'll clear out our form when we submit. So now if we say like 55 in, let's do like, what are we missing here? Let's do like orange. So now when I submit this, no, it didn't update. This dot form data. You refresh my page. Ah, okay. So yeah, I did actually update my form data, but I need to set down here value equals this dot form data dot amount. Value equals this dot form data dot label. This is going to give us an error because it's expecting a string. So I'll probably just have to turn this to a string. And same thing here, data push. And we're probably going to have to do, because I don't think these require us to use. There we go. All right, so now because we've updated the values of these to the form data, they should automatically sync once we set the new form state here. And again, note, this is because I'm resetting the value that render is going to fire. It's not going to fire when I'm updating the value and it's saving it to form data. That's not going to happen because I'm not reinitializing form data. So let's try it again. 15, 14, green. Boom, and my form is cleared. So there you go, there you have it. I'm gonna go ahead and put this guy up on GitHub, and I will put the link in the description. So there you guys have it. There's ChartJS and the announcement. And again, just to recap, we will be at GlobalHack, Chaffetz Arena, St. Louis, this weekend. Sunday, you can actually come and you can buy a ticket for $9 and see the presentations. Feel free to come on by and say hi, and we'll be giving out free high fives for everyone. So feel free to pop by, say hello, tune in. If we're allowed to stream, we're going to be. And other than that, it was awesome to get back on here. I've missed you guys so much. It's been a tough couple months for us, just kind of getting everything in order and getting everything straightened out. but we're super excited to get back on YouTube, get our learning resources back up and running at full steam. And we have so much in store for you guys. So stay tuned, subscribe, notification bell. Oh, way! Fail. Terrible, terrible exit.